Welcome to Tales of the Tender West, where every sunset tells a love story. Saddle up and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tales of the frontier. The sun was sinking low over the desert, its dying light painting the cliffs of Dust Creek in shades of blood and gold. Wind carried the dry whisper of sagebrush, and the sound of distant gunfire echoed faintly through the canyon like a dying man's heartbeat. Riding along the ridge was Cole Rollins, a cowboy with dust on his hat and ghosts in his eyes. He wasn't headed anywhere in particular. Men like him rarely were. He rode to forget, to outpace the memories of a wife buried in Wyoming soil and a law badge that once gleamed on his chest, but now lay forgotten in his saddlebag. As he guided his horse, Shadow, down a narrow trail, the faint crack of a woman's scream cut through the silence. Cole's hand instinctively dropped to the revolver at his hip. He spurred Shadow forward, hooves pounding against the rocky path until the canyon opened into a clearing, and hell itself seemed to unfold before him. A wagon lay overturned, one wheel broken clean off. A man's lifeless body slumped near the driver's seat, blood pooling in the dirt. 3 Black Viper gang riders, faces masked with bandanas, guns drawn, surrounded the wreck, and in the middle of it all stood a woman. She couldn't have been more than her clothes torn, her hands trembling as she shielded 2 frightened children behind her. A streak of dust smeared across her cheek, but her eyes, dark, defiant, and alive, were sharper than any blade in the West. One of the outlaws sneered, "Pretty thing, like you ought to know better than to travel alone." The woman didn't answer. She simply stood her ground, her voice low but steady. "We ain't alone." The outlaw laughed. "That's so." That's when Cole fired. His first shot took the man's hat clean off. The second shattered his gun hand. Before the others could react, Cole charged into the clearing, revolver blazing, his horse cutting through the dust like thunder. 2 of the gang members scattered, firing wild as they rode for cover. The third tried to mount up, but Cole's bullet caught his stirrup, sending him crashing to the ground. The silence that followed was thick with gunsmoke and the smell of iron. The woman turned, clutching her children close. Her lips trembled, and for a long moment, she simply stared at the stranger who'd come out of nowhere. Cole holstered his gun and dismounted slowly, his boots sinking into the sand. "You hurt, ma'am?" She shook her head. "No, but my father, he's gone." Her voice cracked on the last word. "They took him, said they'd come back for us if I didn't follow." Cole glanced toward the horizon where the gang had fled. The trail of dust they left was already fading into the dying light. "You got a name?" "Alina," she said softly. "Alina Vargas." He nodded once. "Well, Miss Vargas, looks like you stirred up the wrong nest of rattlers." She turned to face him fully then, her jaw trembling but her gaze fierce. "They have my father. They'll kill him if I run. They said the only way to spare my family was to surrender myself." Cole's brows furrowed. "And you believe them?" "I don't have a choice," she said, her voice shaking but resolute. "My little brother, my sister, they're all I've got left. Please, if you want to help us, take me as your prisoner. Pretend I'm the one they're after. Ride into town, say you caught me. Maybe then they'll let my family go." Cole stared at her, stunned. In all his years on the frontier, he'd seen courage take many forms. The soldier's oath, the outlaw's last stand, but never something like this. A woman willing to trade her freedom to save her blood. "That's a hell of a bargain." "Miss," he said finally, her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "You said it yourself. I stirred the nest. Now I've got to pay the price." For a long moment, only the wind spoke between them. Carrying the rattle of a loose wagon chain, Cole looked down, his hand tightening around his hat brim. "All right," he muttered, "we'll do it your way." He pulled a length of rope from his saddle and tied it loosely around her wrists, just enough to look convincing. The children watched, confused and frightened. Alina knelt, kissed their foreheads, and whispered something only they could hear. Then she turned back to Cole. "If they see us together, they'll believe you took me. Just don't let them hurt my family." Cole met her eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt something shift inside him. Maybe it was pity, maybe it was respect, or maybe it was the echo of the man he used to be. He nodded once. "I'll get your family back, Miss Vargas. You have my word." As the sun vanished behind the canyon ridge, Cole mounted his horse, Alina beside him, wrists bound and heart unbroken. They rode into the dying light, 2 strangers bound by a lie, both unaware that the road ahead would test every ounce of faith, mercy, and love they had left. The town of Dust Creek slept uneasy that night. Its streets were quiet but not peaceful, the kind of silence that follows gunfire and grief. Lanterns burned low behind shuttered windows, and the air smelled of dust, whiskey, and fear. Cole Rollins rode in slow, his hat brim low, his horse weary from the desert miles. Behind him, tied gently to the saddle horn by a loose rope, rode Alina Vargas, the woman he'd agreed to take as his prisoner. Her wrists were bound, but not cruelly. She sat straight, her chin lifted, her eyes fixed on the flickering lights of the town ahead. Cole's heart was a battlefield of conflict. He'd made a promise, save her family, but the path to keeping it was treacherous. Dust Creek wasn't a place for mercy. It was ruled by whispers, by men who shot first and asked later. As they approached the main street, a voice called from the shadows. "Well, I'll be damned," drawled Sheriff Dane Hollister, stepping into the lamplight. His badge gleamed faintly on his chest, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Cole Rollins, thought you hung up your spurs after that mess in Abilene." Cole dismounted slowly. "Just passing through, Dane." The sheriff's gaze shifted to Elena. "And who's this?" Cole hesitated, then spoke with careful calm. "Outlaw name's Vargas. Heard, she's been riding with the Black Viper gang. There's a bounty on her head, dead or alive." Elena's breath caught, but she kept silent, playing her part. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "The Black Vipers, you say? Been trying to run them snakes out of my county for months." "She was with M when I found her." Cole lied smoothly. "The others got away." Dane gave a low whistle. "You sure know how to pick your battles, Rollins. Bring her inside, we'll have a word." Cole followed him through the creaking doors of the Dust Creek Jail, a small building of cracked brick and cold iron. He guided Elena inside, pretending to shove her forward. She stumbled slightly, the part of a prisoner. "Well played." Dane leaned against his desk, lighting a cigar. "You planning on collecting that bounty, or just delivering her out of kindness?" Cole's jaw tightened. "Depends how much it's worth." The sheriff smirked. $500. Last I heard. For a gal like her, that's a fair price. Elena's voice cut through the room, soft but sharp. "You think money can buy justice, Sheriff?" Dane's smirk vanished. He stepped closer, cigar smoke curling around his face. "Justice ain't free in this town, sweetheart." Cole's hand hovered near his holster. "Easy now, Dane. She's just a prisoner. Then she won't mind sittin' in a cell." Cole glanced at the rusty bars, his mind racing. If Elena was locked away here, her family would be lost, and she'd never stand a chance against the Viper's reach. He had to think fast. "Hold on," Cole said. "The bounty's payable in Silverton, not here. Sheriff there wants to question her himself. I'll take her in first thing at dawn." Dane blew a stream of smoke, studying him. "That's so." "Yeah," Cole replied, his eyes steady. "You'll get your report once she's handed over." For a long moment, the sheriff said nothing. Then he gave a slow nod. "Fine, but I'll be expecting you back by sundown tomorrow, with proof she's gone. If you're lying, you and your prisoner won't be leaving this town alive." Cole tipped his hat. "Understood." He led Elena outside, the rope still around her wrists. As they stepped into the cool night air, she whispered, "Why did you lie for me?" "Because," he said quietly, "the sheriff's worse than the men who took your father." They walked to an old livery stable behind the saloon. Cole lit a lantern, the light casting long shadows on the hay-strewn floor. He untied the rope from her wrists, careful not to meet her eyes. "You're free for now," he said. Elena rubbed her wrists, her voice trembling. "You could have turned me in." "I ain't in the habit of handing folks over to devils," he replied, "but we gotta move fast. At first light, we ride east. The Vipers have your father, and I mean to find him." She looked at him, searching his face for deceit. "Why help me, Cole Rollins?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he poured water into a tin cup and handed it to her. "Because once upon a time, someone begged me to save their family too, and I failed." The weight of his words hung heavy between them. Elena took the cup, her fingers brushing his. For a fleeting second, something past trust, or the beginning of it. Cole turned toward the stable door, his silhouette framed in the lantern glow. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's trail ain't for the faint of heart." Elena watched him walk into the night, his shadow long across the dirt. She didn't know where the road would lead, but for the first time since the ambush, she dared to hope. Outside, the wind howled through the canyon, carrying a warning neither of them could hear. The Black Vipers were closer than they thought. The morning broke over Dust Creek in a haze of gold and dust. The town stirred slowly to life. Roosters crowed behind the blacksmith's shop. A drunk stumbled out of the saloon, and somewhere, a church bell tolled faintly, as if trying to remind the town there was still such a thing as grace. Cole Rollins was already awake. Standing outside the livery stable, tightening the saddle straps on his horse, he had spent the night with one ear open, listening for footsteps, gunfire, anything. But the only sound had been Elena's quiet breathing in the loft above. When she finally stirred, the first rays of sunlight caught her face, soft, tired, but still proud. Her wrists bore faint marks from the ropes. Cole caught her glance and looked away quickly. Clearing his throat, "Best we move before the sheriff changes his mind," he said. Elena nodded, gathering her shawl. "I'm ready." But before they could leave, heavy boots echoed outside. The stable door swung open. Sheriff Dane Hollister stepped inside, holding a folded sheet of paper. His eyes were cold, calculating. "Mornin' Rollins," he drawled. "You got an early start, huh?" Cole's stomach sank. "We were just saddling up." Dane's lip curled. "You should have waited. News just rode in from Silverton. Thought you'd want to see this." He held out the paper, a wanted poster, creased and smudged, but the image was clear enough. The name printed beneath it made Elena's blood run cold. Elena Vargas wanted for aiding the Black Viper gang. Reward, $500. Dead or alive. Her heart pounded as Dane's eyes shifted from the poster to her face. Looks like your prisoner's worth more than you thought, he said with a mocking grin. Cole forced a steady tone. She's still mine to deliver. The sheriff chuckled. Not anymore. The law says wanted folks stay here till trial, or till the bounty's paid. You can leave her, Rollins. I'll handle it from here. Cole stepped forward, his hand brushing the edge of his coat where his revolver rested. I made a deal. I bring her in. I collect and that's the rule. Dane's smile faded, replaced by something colder. Rules change when I say they do. Elena's voice trembled but didn't break. Sheriff, please, I'm innocent. They forced me to help them. They have my father. Save it. Dane snapped. You expect me to believe that old tale? Cole's jaw tightened. He could see where this was heading. Dane wanted the reward, and maybe something worse. Tell you what, the sheriff said, folding the poster slowly. You hand her over now, and I'll forget you interfered. Otherwise, things might get complicated for you. Cole met his gaze squarely. Things already are. The tension hung thick as smoke. Dane's hand hovered near his belt, but Cole didn't flinch. Finally, the sheriff gave a mocking laugh. Fine, you want her. Take her. But when the law comes, Eskin, don't say I didn't warn you. He turned and strode out, the door slamming behind him. For a long time, neither Cole nor Alina spoke. The only sound was the creak of leather and the soft snort of Shadow, Cole's horse. Then Alina exhaled shakily. He's going to tell the gang, isn't he? Cole nodded grimly. Wouldn't surprise me. Dane's got dirt on his hands, always has. Tears welled in her eyes, but she fought them back. You should have handed me over. Now he'll come for you too. Cole looked at her, really looked. The fear, the guilt, the fire still burning beneath it all. You think I care about my hide? He said softly. You asked me to save your family. That's what I aim to do. Alina turned away, her voice trembling. You don't even know me. Cole's answer was quiet but steady. Don't need to. I know what desperation looks like. I've worn it. He led her out the back of the stable, down an old trail behind the hills. One only locals knew. They rode hard, keeping to the dry creek, the horizon shimmering with heat. By midday, they reached an abandoned barn near the edge of the canyon, a hiding place from Cole's past. When lawmen and outlaws had both wanted his head, they dismounted, and Cole led the horses inside. We'll rest here till nightfall, he said. Then we ride for the canyons. If the Vipers got your PA, that's where they'll keep him. Alina sank to her knees, exhausted. Her hands trembled as she whispered, I never wanted any of this. Cole, I just wanted to keep them safe. He crouched beside her, his voice low. You're doing what you have to. That ain't something to be ashamed of. Their eyes met hers, full of fear and fire, his filled with quiet resolve. Outside, a hawk circled over the canyon, its cry cutting through the still air like a warning. The hunt for the truth, and for Elena's family, had begun. The sun had climbed high by the time Rollins found a small stream trickling through the canyon's edge. He filled 2 canteens, the cold water splashing over his calloused hands. Behind him, Alina Vargas sat in the shade of an old cottonwood tree, brushing sand from her dress, her gaze fixed on the horizon like she was trying to see beyond it to her father, her home, her lost peace. The silence between them was heavy, not awkward but full. 2 people who'd already said the things that mattered most through actions rather than words. Cole handed her the canteen. Drink, you'll need your strength. She nodded and took a small sip. You talk like a man used to giving orders, she said quietly. Used to, he replied. Long time ago. Her eyes softened. You were a lawman once, weren't you? Cole froze, his fingers tightening around the leather strap of his saddlebag. What makes you say that? The way you look at people, she said, like you're measuring whether they're guilty or not. He looked away toward the canyon wall, its shadows deepening in the midday heat. Yeah, he said finally. I was, till the badge started, meaning less than the men who wore it. Alina nodded slowly. Then maybe we're not so different. Cole's eyes returned to her. What do you mean? My father, she said, her voice trembling but steady. He worked for the Rocking Star Mining Company. They found gold near Dust Creek 3 years ago, more than any man should have seen in one lifetime. But he wanted no part in it, said it would bring death before fortune. Cole leaned forward, listening. One night, she continued. The Black Viper gang came, said my father knew the location of the richest vein, a secret map he kept hidden. They took him. I tried to stop them, but she stopped, swallowing the rest. They said if I didn't help them get what they wanted, they'd kill him and my siblings. So, I agreed. I carried letters, supplies, nothing violent. But then they started robbing miners, killing folks. I ran. Her eyes glistened with tears. The sheriff put my face on a wanted poster before I could explain. Cole exhaled slowly, his suspicions hardening into certainty. Dane Hollister's tied to that mine somehow. Always was too rich for an honest sheriff. He rose to his feet, pacing. If the Vipers and Dane are both after that gold, your PA's the key. And that means he's still alive, at least for now. Alina stood, clutching her shawl. You really think we can find him? I've tracked worse men in worse places, he said. But first, we need to know where the mine is. She hesitated. There was a ledger my father kept. Names, places, maybe even the map. It's hidden in our house. Or, what's left of it. Cole looked toward the western ridges, where the faint smoke of Dust Creek blurred against the sky. Then that's where we're going. Alina stepped closer. It's too dangerous. Dane's men will be watching the town. Cole gave a half smile. Darlin', danger's the only thing that keeps me awake anymore. They saddled up, the sun already sliding west. By dusk, they rode along the back trails toward Elena's homestead, a small patch of land outside town, half-burned and abandoned. The ruins came into view as the evening wind whispered through blackened rafters and broken fences. Alina dismounted, her breath catching. This was home. Cole followed her through the ashes. The remains of a rocking chair lay toppled near the porch. A child's toy horse sat half buried in dust. The sight pulled something deep and painful from him, memories of a home he'd once lost to. Where'd your PA keep that ledger? He asked gently. She walked to what had been the kitchen, moving aside broken boards and soot-stained dishes. Beneath a loose plank in the floor, her fingers found a small leather-bound book. She clutched it like it was a living thing. This is it. Cole opened it carefully. The pages were filled with maps, notes, and strange symbols. A cipher. He was hiding something big. Cole murmured. These marks here. That's no miner's code. That's coordinates. Suddenly, a twig snapped outside. Cole's head jerked up. He motioned for silence, drawing his revolver. Through a gap in the wall, he saw a movement, 3 riders at the tree line. The glint of rifles in the moonlight told him everything he needed to know. The Vipers, he whispered. Elena's eyes widened. How did they find us? Dane, Cole growled. He must have sent M. He blew out the lantern and grabbed Elena's hand. Back door. Now they slipped through the dark as bullets shattered the windows. Cole fired twice, dropping one outlaw, then pulled Elena toward the horses. They rode hard into the night, gunfire echoing behind them. The desert wind tore at their faces as they disappeared into the black horizon, the burning ruins fading behind them. Elena clutched the ledger to her chest, her voice breaking. They'll never stop coming, will they? Cole glanced at her, the moonlight sharp on his jaw. No, he said, but neither will we. The desert night had fallen heavy and still. Cole Rollins guided his horse along the dry canyon trail, the hooves sinking softly into sand. The pale moonlight painted the rocks silver, and the wind carried the distant cry of a coyote, a lonely echo across miles of empty land. Behind him rode Elena Vargas, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders, the precious ledger pressed against her chest. The sound of pursuit had faded, but both knew the Black Viper gang would be hunting again by dawn. Cole slowed near a cluster of boulders where a trickle of water ran down from the rocks. An oasis, hidden by the land itself. He dismounted, tied his horse to a mesquite tree, and motioned for Elena to rest. We'll stay here for the night, he said softly. It's safe enough. Wind covers our trail. She nodded, weary but alert. The past 2 days had taken more from her than she'd admit. Her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, yet they still held that same unyielding fire, the kind that had made Cole agree to her impossible request in the first place. Cole gathered dry wood and struck a match. The small campfire flared to life, casting gold light on their faces and the surrounding stone. Elena sat near the flames, her hands trembling slightly as she warmed them. For a long time, they said nothing. The fire popped softly. Somewhere above, an owl called. Then Cole spoke, his tone quiet, almost reluctant. You said your PA worked for the Rocking Star Company. How deep was he in? Elena stared into the flames. He was their foreman once. A good man, proud, honest. He believed every man should earn what's his, not steal it from the earth or from others. When the company struck gold, he warned them it would bring ruin. She paused, her voice catching. They laughed at him, called him a fool. Then men started dying in the shafts. Gas leaks, collapses. Some said the mine was cursed. Cole leaned forward, and that's when the Vipers showed up. Yes, they wanted my father to hand over the location of the richest vein, said it could make them kings. When he refused, they took him. Said they'd torture him till he talked. Her eyes glistened in the firelight. I tried to reason with their leader, Silas Kane. He said the only way to keep my family alive was to do what they asked. I ran errands, carried messages, even smuggled gunpowder once, until I realized they were going to kill him no matter what. So I ran. Cole's expression hardened. You did what you had to. That ain't guilt, that's survival. Elena shook her head. You don't understand. The sheriff knew. He was supposed to protect us, but she stopped, her throat tightening. He came to our ranch after I escaped. Told me I had 2 choices. Return to the gang or hang for treason. I begged him to help me find my father. Her eyes met his. He just laughed. Said he already got paid to look the other way. Cole stared into the fire, the muscles in his jaw tightening. Dane Hollister, he muttered. I should have known. That man's been rotten since the war. Always did like the smell of gold more than the sound of justice. Elena's voice softened. You knew him once, didn't you? Cole nodded slowly. Rode with him when I wore the badge. He was my partner. I thought he was the kind of man who'd die for the law. Turns out, he'd rather sell it. For a while, neither spoke. The fire burned lower, and the stars above stretched endless and bright. Then Elena whispered, Do you ever wish you could go back? Cole's eyes lifted to the night sky. Every damn day, he said. But the past, don't let go easy. It clings like dust. She studied him for a long moment. You're not like them, Cole. You still have honor. You could have left me back in town. He gave a faint, tired smile. Maybe I ain't trying to be a hero. Maybe I'm just tired of losing good folks. Their eyes met, hers full of gratitude and something softer. For a brief moment, the fire between them wasn't just from the flames. A cold wind swept through the canyon, scattering embers. Alina shivered, and Cole rose, pulling off his worn duster and placing it over her shoulders. Get some rest, he said. We ride before dawn. She hesitated, then whispered, Cole, thank you. He tipped his hat slightly. Don't thank me yet. We still got to walk through hell to bring your PA home. As she lay beneath the blanket of stars, Alina clutched her father's ledger close, her heart torn between fear and faith. Cole sat by the dying fire, keeping watch, a silhouette of a man fighting ghosts, both old and new, and far off in the desert night. Unseen by either of them, a shadow watched from the ridge, a lone rider wearing a serpent-etched belt buckle. The black vipers had found their trail. Dawn broke in streaks of crimson and gold over the desert, lighting the sandstone cliffs like fire. Cole Rollins tightened the cinch on his horse and looked toward the narrow pass ahead, Hell's Canyon, a twisting maze of rock and shadow. The locals called it cursed. Cole called it the only way to stay hidden. Elena Vargas climbed onto her horse, clutching her shawl against the cold. You really think my father's being held beyond there? She asked. Cole nodded. That ledger of his, it's worth more than a mine full of gold. Silas Kane won't risk keeping him anywhere near town. If I were him, I'd hole up deep in that canyon. Hard to reach, harder to escape. They started forward, their horses picking carefully across loose stone. The wind moaned through the rocks like distant voices. Every turn seemed to narrow the canyon walls, closing around them like a trap. Cole rode in silence. Senses sharp, he'd ridden through ambushes before, and the stillness around them was too perfect. Even the birds had gone quiet. Then he saw it, a flicker of light on the ridge, the glint of metal. Down, he barked, pulling his revolver. A rifle cracked. The echo roared through the canyon as a bullet shattered stone near Elena's head. She gasped, ducking low from the cliffs above. 3 riders appeared, faces masked, guns drawn. The Black Vipers. Cole fired first, his shot knocking one of them clean off his saddle. The man tumbled down the rocks, hitting the ground with a sickening thud. Ride for the bend, Cole shouted. She kicked her horse hard, racing ahead as bullets whistled past. Cole spurred his own mount after her, returning fire with deadly precision. Another rider went down, but 2 more emerged from behind the rocks, cutting off their escape. The canyon narrowed again, leaving no room to turn. Keep going, Cole roared. Don't stop for anything. They thundered through the pass, the air thick with dust and gunfire. Elena's heart pounded in her chest. She clung to the reins, hearing every shot like thunder in her ears. Suddenly, her horse stumbled. A bullet grazed its flank, and the animal reared in pain. Elena cried out as she was thrown hard to the ground. Cole's blood ran cold. He spun his horse around, firing twice to drop the nearest pursuer, then leaped down beside her. You hurt? She shook her head, dazed. No, just winded. He helped her to her feet, scanning the cliffs. The shooting had stopped. For a heartbeat, silence fell again, heavy and wrong. Then came the voice, slow, mocking. Well, I'll be damned. If it ain't Cole Rollins, the lawman who turned outlaw. Cole froze. From the shadows of the canyon stepped a tall man in a black duster, a serpent-etched belt buckle glinting in the light. His grin was sharp, his eyes colder than gunmetal. Silas Kane. Behind him, 4 more Vipers emerged, rifles trained. Kane, Cole said, voice low and steady. Let the girl go. She ain't part of this. Kane laughed. Ain't part of it? Boy, she's the reason we're all here. She ran off with my ledger and with her daddy's pretty little secrets. He turned his gaze to Elena. Your old man's tougher than I thought. Still won't talk, but maybe seeing you again will change that. Elena's hands clenched. You're a liar, Kane. You promised you wouldn't hurt him. Kane smirked. I lie for a living, sweetheart. Cole's jaw tightened. He knew that look. Kane was enjoying every second. You're making a mistake, Cole said quietly. You touch her, and I'll make sure you don't live to see sundown. Kane tilted his head. You still think you're the hero, don't you, Cole? Always playing sheriff, even after the badge turned to rust. He raised his revolver. Drop your gun, old friend, or she dies right here. Cole's hand hovered at his side. His eyes met Elena's, fear and trust flashing between them like lightning. Then, without warning, Cole grabbed her hand and dove behind a boulder as Kane fired. The shot slammed into stone, sparking shards into the air. Gunfire exploded from both sides. Dust filled the canyon as bullets tore through the rocks. Cole fired blind, forcing the Vipers to scatter. Go! He yelled to Elena. There's a ravine up ahead. Follow it east. I'm not leaving you, she shouted back. Do it. A shot whizzed past her shoulder, close enough to burn the fabric of her shawl. She ducked and ran, clutching the ledger tight. Cole covered her retreat. his revolver blazing until the hammer clicked empty dot when he looked up again. The canyon was full of smoke, and Kane's men were closing in. Cole reloaded, eyes burning. He wasn't running anymore. The air was thick with dust and dread. The sound of hooves thundered through Hell's Canyon as Silas Kane's riders tore around the bend. A dozen men, guns flashing in the rising sun. Cole Rollins took a steadying breath, his revolver heavy in his hand. Beside him, Alina Vargas crouched low behind an overturned wagon, her rifle braced against the wood. Her father knelt behind them, reloading the old shotgun with shaking fingers. "Stay low," Cole warned. "Aim for their horses first, make 'em scatter." Alina nodded, her blue shawl snapping in the wind. Her eyes were hard now, steady, no longer afraid. The first shots rang out. Cole fired. One rider tumbled from his saddle. Alina fired, another fell. The outlaws' formation broke as the canyon filled with gunfire, the echoes rolling like thunder. Bullets splintered wood and kicked up dirt. The wagon shuddered with each impact. Alina ducked as a slug ripped through the wheel beside her, sending splinters flying. Her father shouted, "They're flanking from the left." Cole spun, saw movement near the ridge, and dropped 2 more men before they could aim. Smoke filled the air, choking and hot. "Keep firing," he yelled, voice hoarse. Then came Kane's voice, booming over the chaos. "Rollins, you think you can take me down? You're just one man." Cole's jaw tightened. That's all it ever took. He ducked out from cover, rolling behind a boulder, and fired again. The shot grazed Kane's hat clean off his head. Kane snarled, spurring his horse closer. "You'll die slow for that." Alina's rifle cracked. The bullet hit Kane's horse in the leg. The animal screamed and reared, throwing him to the ground. He landed hard but rolled to his feet, fury in his eyes and a revolver already drawn. Cole saw him, but before he could take aim, a bullet tore past his arm, grazing flesh. He hissed, in pain, dropping behind the boulder again. Alina scrambled to his side. "You're bleeding again. Don't worry about me," he said through gritted teeth. "Just keep him off your father." Her father's shotgun roared, sending one outlaw tumbling off a ridge. But more were coming to many. Kane advanced through the smoke, his men spreading out. "You can't win, Rollins," he shouted. "You'll die here, same as her old man should have years ago." Cole looked to Alina. "You ready to prove him wrong?" She met his gaze, fierce, determined. "Always." He nodded once. "Then follow my lead." They moved as one. Cole rose first, firing both revolvers in quick succession, covering Alina as she darted out, rolling behind another rock. She fired from there, hitting a viper in the chest, then swung her rifle toward another and squeezed the trigger again. Each shot rang like a heartbeat, each echo a promise. But the odds were turning. The vipers pushed closer, bullets whizzing past in a deadly storm. Her father called out, "They're circling behind us." Cole glanced toward the mine entrance behind them, the old tunnel Elena's father had mentioned. He saw dynamite crates stacked nearby. A dangerous idea sparked in his mind. "Alina," he shouted, "we're not holding this line much longer, but we can bury this canyon on top of them." She followed his gaze, saw the crates, and understood immediately. "You mean to blow it?" He nodded grimly. "Once we're clear of the mouth, but I'll need time to set the fuse." Kane's voice echoed again. "Closer now. You can't run from me, Rollins." "Not again." Cole's eyes darkened. "Ain't running this time." He grabbed a stick of dynamite and his lighter, then looked to Alina. "Get your PA to the tunnel. When I say go, you ride hard and don't look back." Her voice trembled. "And you, I'll be right behind you." She hesitated, wanting to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. It wasn't recklessness, it was resolve. She nodded. "Don't you dare break your word." He smiled faintly. "Wouldn't dream of it." Then he darted toward the crates, bullets snapping around him. He struck the lighter, lit the fuse, and threw himself behind the boulder as the first explosion ripped through the canyon. The blast shook the ground. Smoke and flame erupted, swallowing the front line of riders. Horses screamed. Men shouted. "Now," Cole yelled. Alina and her father raced toward the mine tunnel, the earth trembling beneath their boots. Cole followed, ducking low as rock and fire rained behind him. But Kane was still alive. Through the smoke, his voice cut sharp as steel. "You can't kill me that easy, Rollins." Cole turned just as Kane appeared, his face streaked with soot. Revolver raised, the two men locked eyes. Enemies, brothers once. Now the canyon would decide who walked away. They both fired. 2 flashes. 2 echoes. When the smoke cleared, one man stood. The blast still echoed through Hell's Canyon, rolling like thunder through the desert hills. Smoke curled up from shattered stone, and the smell of gunpowder and burning leather hung thick in the air. Alina Vargas stumbled out of the mine tunnel, coughing hard, her shawl torn and covered in dust. Her father clung to her arm, weak but alive. The world around them was chaos, fire smoldering, horses fleeing, rocks still tumbling from the canyon walls. "Cole," she shouted, her voice raw. "Cole, where are you?" Her cry vanished into the roar of settling stone. There was no answer, only the moan of the wind. She took a shaky step forward. "No, no," he promised. Behind her, her father grabbed her hand. "Alina, stop. It's too dangerous." Tears streaked down her cheeks. "He's out there, Papa," He lit the fuse. He saved us. She pulled free, ignoring the pain in her lungs, and ran toward the blackened clearing where the dynamite had gone off. The canyon was half collapsed, filled with dust and flame. Bodies lay scattered, the black vipers, crushed beneath falling rock or silent in the dirt. And then, through the smoke, she saw two figures lying only feet apart, one in a dark coat, the other in a tattered duster. Cole. She ran to him, dropping to her knees beside his motionless body. His shirt was torn, blood on his chest, his revolver still clutched in one hand. She pressed a trembling palm against his face. Cole, please, please, open your eyes. For a long moment, nothing. Then, a faint cough. His eyelids fluttered. He groaned, trying to breathe. Alina. A broken laugh escaped her lips. You stubborn fool. You did it. You actually did it. He gave a weak smile. Told you, I'd be right behind you. Her tears came harder then, half relief, half disbelief. Don't you ever scare me like that again. Can't promise that, he rasped. Seems to be my specialty. She helped him sit up, wincing as she saw the wound in his side. The bullet had gone clean through, bloody but not fatal. Save your breath, she said softly. We'll patch you up once we're clear. He nodded, then looked to the other body lying a few feet away, Silas Kane. The outlaw lay still, his revolver beside him, smoke still curling from the barrel. Cole's expression hardened. Guess it ended how it had to. Alina followed his gaze. You killed him. Cole shook his head slowly. We both fired, but looks like he met the devil first. She stared at Kane's lifeless form, the man who had brought terror to her family. She thought she'd feel peace, or vengeance, or satisfaction. But instead, she felt only emptiness. Her father approached, leaning heavily on a broken rifle. His eyes widened as he saw Cole alive. You're the man who came for her. Cole nodded weakly. Just keeping a promise, sir. The older man's voice trembled. Then I owe you more than I can ever repay. Cole tried to smile. Don't reckon I did it for a reward. Alina tore a strip from her shawl and pressed it against his wound. Hold still. He winced, then muttered, You sure you ain't a doctor? She smirked through her tears. Just a woman who refuses to lose another man to the desert. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by the wreckage, the canyon, now a grave for the vipers and the past. Finally, Cole said, We should move before more of them come sniffing around. Hollister might have had men elsewhere. Her father nodded. There's a stream, east of here. Leads to the Rio Verde, we can follow it back to town. Cole rose slowly, leaning on his revolver like a cane. Then let's ride. They found two surviving horses among the wreck. One of them Kane's black stallion. Cole offered it to Elena's father, then climbed onto his own, grimacing with every move. As they rode out of Hell's Canyon, the sun broke through the haze, a brilliant blaze of orange spilling across the wasteland. Elena looked back one last time at the smoldering valley. Do you think it's over? She asked quietly. Cole followed her gaze, eyes shadowed beneath his hat. It's never over, he said. Not for folks like us. But maybe, this is a start. She smiled faintly. A start sounds mighty fine to me. They rode on, three silhouettes against the dawn. The outlaw, the daughter, and the man who had once sworn never to wear the badge again. Behind them, the canyon smoldered in silence, a tomb for vengeance, and the birth of redemption. Smoke hung thick in the canyon, curling like ghosts around the boulders. Cole Rollins crouched low, reloading his revolver with trembling hands slick from sweat and dust. He could hear the echo of boots scraping rock, the hiss of a voice too familiar. Still fightin', Cole. Silas Kane called from somewhere in the haze. You never did know when to quit. Cole's jaw set hard. He peeked over the stone, fired once, and hit a rifle clean out of a man's hands. The shot rang like thunder, but then came another sound, a click behind him. Don't move, Rollins. That voice froze him colder than the desert night. He turned slowly. There stood Sheriff Dane Hollister, his former partner, the man he once trusted with his life. The same man who'd betrayed Elena's family. Hollister's badge gleamed dull in the dust. Drop the gun, he said. You've caused enough trouble. Cole's heart twisted. So it's true. You're riding with Kane now. Hollister smirked. You think I wanted to. Law don't pay. Cole never did. Kane's money does, and unlike you, I don't live on broken oaths and whiskey. Cole's eyes narrowed. You sold out the badge. Sold out the folks who believed in you. Hollister shrugged. Badge don't feed a man. Gold does. And Kane's got more of it than the Lord himself. Not for long, Cole growled. He moved quick, drawing his revolver, but Hollister fired first. The bullet tore through Cole's shoulder, sending him sprawling to the ground. The pain was a wildfire, hot and sharp. His gun clattered into the dust. Kane stepped out of the smoke, his grin wide and cruel. Told you, he'd come quietly with the right persuasion. Cole tried to rise, but two vipers seized him, twisting his arms behind his back. The world spun red and black as they dragged him to his knees. Kane crouched down in front of him. You could have been rich, Rollins. You and I, we could have owned half this territory. But no, you had to play hero. Always had to save the damsel. He glanced toward the ridge. Speaking of which, where is she? Cole stayed silent. His blood dripped onto the sand, dark and steady. Kane grabbed his collar. Don't test me, cowboy. I'll burn every inch of this canyon till I find her, and your silence won't save her. Cole spat blood. You won't touch her. Kane laughed, standing. You're in no position to make promises. He turned to Hollister. Tie him up. We'll bring him back to camp. Once we've got the girl, we'll have ourselves a reunion with her old man. The sheriff hesitated, then nodded. Reckon that's fair. Cole was shoved onto a horse, his hands bound tight. They rode deeper into the canyon, the cliffs rising higher, sunlight thinning until it was just a pale ribbon far above. They stopped at a narrow plateau. Hidden behind a wall of stone, the Viper's camp. Fires burned low around makeshift tents, and men with hard eyes watched as Cole was dragged into the center. Kane dismounted and walked to a crude wooden cage built from mining timber. Inside sat a thin, ragged man with iron gray hair and a haunted gaze. His wrists were shackled, his clothes torn. Elena's father, Kane, said with a smirk. The man of the hour. Cole's breath caught. Dear God. The man looked up weakly. Who are you? Cole Rollins, he said. Your daughter sent me. The old man's eyes filled with tears. Elena's alive, and fightin' to save you. Kane barked a laugh. Not for long. Once I've got that ledger back, she won't have a reason to keep breathing. Cole's fury burned through the pain. You'll never find her. Kane drew his revolver and pressed the barrel under Cole's chin. Then you better hope she finds you first. He pulled back the hammer. The metallic click echoed like a clock counting down. Then a sudden shout. Boss riders coming down from the ridge. Kane turned sharply, lowering his weapon. What riders? 2 of ours dead. Someone shot him clean through the heart. Cole's lips curled into a faint bloodied smile. Told you she was alive. Kane's expression darkened. Find her now. He motioned to Hollister. You stay with him. If the girl shows up, shoot them both. As the gang mounted up and thundered out of the canyon, Hollister stood over Cole, gun in hand, eyes flickering with old regret. You should have left when you had the chance, he muttered. Gold looked up, breathing hard. Maybe, but then who'd be left to stop you? Hollister didn't answer. He just turned away, unaware that, far above them, hidden in the shadows of the ridge, Elena Vargas was already watching, rifle in hand. And this time, she wasn't running. The wind howled through Hell's Canyon as the morning sun rose over the jagged peaks. From her hiding place, high above the Viper's camp, Elena Vargas steadied the long rifle in her trembling hands. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now burned with resolve. Below, she could see them, the campfires flickering, the outlaws restless. And in the middle of it all, Cole Rollins, bound to a post, blood dark on his shirt, his head bowed. A few yards away, a wooden cage held her father, gaunt, broken, yet still alive. Her breath caught in her throat. Papa. Elena wiped the tears from her eyes. She couldn't afford to cry now. Cole had bought her time she would not waste. She checked the rifle's chamber. Only 5 bullets left. Each one would have to count. From below, a rough voice carried through the canyon. Where's Kane? One of the guards called. Riding out to find the girl. Another replied. Said she's near. Lena's pulse quickened. They didn't know how near. She whispered to herself. Take me as your prisoner. Save my family. You kept your promise, Cole. Now it's my turn. Down in the camp, Sheriff Dane Hollister stood near Cole, gun drawn, pacing slowly. You always had a death wish, he muttered. Could have been brothers once. You and me. Cole lifted his head, wincing through the pain. Brothers, don't sell out good folks for a handful of gold. Hollister's jaw tightened. Don't start preaching now. You ain't pure either. You shot a man in cold blood once, remember? Cole's eyes darkened. Yeah, a rustler who murdered a family in their sleep. You're nothing like him, you're worse. At least he didn't hide behind a badge. For a moment, something flickered in Hollister's face. Guilt, maybe. But then he steadied his hand, pressing the barrel of his gun to Cole's ribs. Maybe this'll finally shut that righteous mouth of yours. A single gunshot split the air, but it wasn't Hollister's. He stumbled backward, a bloom of red spreading across his arm. From the ridge, Elena's rifle smoked. Cole, she shouted, get down. Chaos erupted in the camp. 2 guards scrambled for cover as another fell, clutching his chest. Elena reloaded fast, her fingers moving with furious precision. Cole, still bound, kicked his chair backward and rolled into the dirt. Just as bullets tore through the space he'd been sitting in, Elena fired again, hitting one outlaw through the shoulder. The man dropped his gun and screamed. The remaining guard took aim at her position, but she was quicker. Her next shot hit true. The man fell still. Silence returned, broken only by the echo of wind and Cole's ragged breathing. From behind a wagon, Hollister growled in pain, clutching his wounded arm. Damn you, girl, he shouted. You'll pay for that. Elena's voice carried strong and fierce. Not before you do, Sheriff. She swung the rifle toward Cole, fired once more, the bullet snapping through the rope that held his wrists. Cole ripped the bindings free, grabbed Hollister's fallen revolver, and rose with fury blazing in his eyes. You had your chance, he said coldly. Before Hollister could lift his gun again, Cole fired. The sheriff staggered back, eyes wide in shock. Before collapsing in the dust, for a moment, the canyon was utterly still. Elena scrambled down the rocky path, sliding and stumbling until she reached the bottom. Cole was waiting, leaning against a wagon, pale from blood loss but standing tall. "You're one hell of a shot," he said hoarsely. She smiled through her tears. "You're one hell of a fool for getting caught." He laughed weakly. "Guess we're even." Elena rushed to her father's cage, smashing the lock with the butt of the rifle until it splintered. "Papa," she cried, throwing her arms around him. "My brave girl," he whispered, voice shaking. "You shouldn't have come." She looked into his hollow eyes. "I had to. Cole did everything to bring me here." Cole approached, swaying a little. "We need to move. Ken'll be back soon, and he'll bring hell with him." Her father nodded. "There's a tunnel behind the canyon wall. Old mining route. It leads to the river. We can escape through there." Cole helped the older man to his feet, then looked at Elena. "You lead. I'll cover." But before they could move, a distant sound rolled through the canyon. Hoofbeats, many of them. Elena's blood ran cold. "They're back?" Cole raised his gun, his eyes narrowing. "Then we make our stand here." The three of them turned toward the sound, the dust rising in the distance like a storm. Silas Kane and his gang were returning, angrier and deadlier than ever. Elena took a deep breath, gripping her rifle tight. "If this is where it ends, we end it together." Cole looked at her, proud, fierce, and unbroken. "Then let's make it count." The first riders came into view, rifles raised, black coats whipping in the wind. Cole cocked his revolver. Elena took aim beside him. Her father loaded a shotgun with trembling hands. The battle for redemption had begun. The desert stretched before them in golden waves as dawn spilled over the horizon. Three riders moved slowly along the Rio Verde trail, their shadows long, their hearts heavy. Cole, Maddox rode at the front, hat low, one hand pressed against the wound in his side. Elena Vargas rode behind him, her father clinging to her waist. The smell of sage and smoke hung faintly in the wind, and for the first time in days, the sound of gunfire was only a memory. When the first rooftops of Redemption Ridge came into view, Elena exhaled softly. Home, or what was left of it. But Cole didn't slow his horse. His sharp eyes scanned the ridges and rooftops. The town looked too still. No morning bustle, no wagons, not even the sound of the blacksmith's hammer. "Something wasn't right, Elena," he said, voice low. "Keep your PA close. Don't speak till I say." She frowned. "Cole." He raised a hand, silencing her. The vipers might be gone, but the snake still got its head somewhere. They rode into town cautiously. The sign over the saloon swayed in the wind, and the church bell hung silent. Two men stood outside the sheriff's office, smoking, their badges glinting, but neither of them was the sheriff. Cole's eyes narrowed. New lawmen, or imposters. As they dismounted, one of the men stepped forward. Well, look who's crawled out of the desert. Cole Maddox, the runaway deputy." Cole didn't blink. "And you are—" The man grinned. "Sheriff Hollister's new deputies. Sheriff's orders. Anyone riding into town armed gets questioned. Hand over your guns." Elena stiffened. "We just came from Hell's Canyon. The sheriff should know what happened." The deputy smirked. "Oh, he knows. He sent men there. Ain't none come back." Cole's jaw tightened. "That's because his men were vipers." The smile vanished. The deputy's hand dropped to his holster, but Cole was faster. In one swift motion, his revolver cleared leather and cocked. The deputy froze, sweat beading at his temple. "Now," Cole said calmly, "you're gonna take me to Hollister, or I'll start asking questions the hard way." The man nodded quickly. "Inside, he's in his office." Cole gestured for Elena and her father to stay back. "Don't move till I say so." The saloon doors creaked as Cole stepped into the sheriff's office. The air inside was thick with cigar smoke and arrogance. Sheriff Elias Hollister sat behind his desk, boots up, a bottle of whiskey half empty beside him. His silver star gleamed in the dusty light. "Well, I'll be damned," he said with a lazy smile. "Cole Maddox, I heard you crawled into a grave years ago." Cole didn't smile. "Maybe I should have. Would have saved me a lot of filth to clean up." Hollister leaned forward. "You got nerve cumin back here, son. You walked out on this town when it needed you." "I walked out," Cole growled, "when I realized the sheriff was running with outlaws." Hollister laughed, a cruel sound. "You talk big for a man with a hole in his side." Cole's voice was cold. "Kane's dead. The vipers are gone. I know who paid them, and it was you." The sheriff's hand inched toward his gun. "Careful what you say, Maddox. That's a mighty dangerous lie." "Not a lie," Cole said evenly. "I found Kane's ledger. Your signature's all over it. Payment for protection, weapons, land rights. You sold out every farmer and rancher in this valley." Hollister stood, fury rising in his face. "You think anyone's gonna believe you? I am the law here, not anymore." The door burst open. Elena stood there, holding up a small, leather-bound book. "He's telling the truth. We found this in the mine. Kane kept records of every deal." Hollister's eyes went wide. "You stupid girl." He drew his revolver, but Cole was faster. Two shots rang out. One hit the sheriff square in the chest. He staggered back, shock twisting his face. The whiskey bottle crashed to the floor. Cole's arm trembled as smoke curled from his gun. For a long moment, the room was silent. Then Hollister slumped. Dead. Elena lowered the ledger. her hands shaking. It's over. Cole holstered his gun slowly. For him, maybe, but for us, not yet. Outside, people began to gather, drawn by the sound of gunfire. Cole turned to the crowd, his voice steady. Elias Hollister's gone. He was in league with the Vipers. I got proof right here. This town's law died long before he did, but it can be rebuilt. Honest this time, the townsfolk murmured, uncertain but listening. Cole looked to Alina and her father. You two deserve peace. I'll make sure you get it. She stepped closer, her eyes soft. And you? Where will you go? He looked out toward the horizon, that endless western sky. Don't know yet, but the frontier's wide, and there's still good work to be done. The wind rustled through the empty street, carrying the scent of dust and freedom. The sun was dipping low over Redemption Ridge, painting the town in shades of gold and rust. The air carried a rare stillness, no gunfire, no shouting, no fear. Only the soft creak of wagon wheels and the murmur of townsfolk, finally daring to hope again. Sheriff Hollister's body had been buried behind the jailhouse, unmarked and quickly forgotten. The people of the town had already begun talking of elections, new law, rebuilding what had been broken. But Cole Maddox knew his time there was almost done. He sat outside the saloon on the porch, hat tipped forward, a whiskey glass resting untouched beside him. His wound was nearly healed, though every breath reminded him of the fight he'd survived. The badge Hollister once wore now lay on the table in front of him, its shine dulled by dust and blood. He turned it over in his hand, frowning. He'd worn one just like it once, and it had cost him everything. Thought I might find you here, said a gentle voice. Cole looked up to see Alina Vargas standing in the doorway, wearing a simple white dress that swayed in the warm evening breeze. The dirt and smoke of the canyon were gone now, replaced by calm and something deeper in her eyes. You heal slower than most men I've met, she said with a teasing smile. He smirked faintly. Most men don't take bullets for a living. She walked closer, her gaze falling on the badge. You thinkin' of wearin' that again? Cole stared at it for a long moment before replying. No, badge don't make a man honest. Heart does. Alina sat beside him, her hands folded in her lap. Then maybe this town needs a man with both. He looked at her, the same woman who once stood before him, offering herself as prisoner to save her family. Now she sat here, free, radiant, and stronger than ever. I ain't the stinning kind, Alina, he said quietly. Never was. She looked down, trying to hide the flicker of disappointment. Where will you go? Don't know, he said. South, maybe. Heard talk of settlers near the border getting pushed off their land. Might lend a hand. Always riding toward someone else's trouble. He gave a small chuckle. Seems to be all I'm good for. They sat in silence for a while, the sound of the windmill creaking in the distance. Finally, Alina spoke softly. You saved my family. My father calls you a guardian angel. Cole smirked. Ain't no angel, Alina, just a man trying to balance his sins. She turned to face him, eyes shining. Then, maybe you've done enough. He hesitated, then met her gaze. If I stop now, what happens to the next folks who need help? The ones who don't have someone to ride in for em? Her hand brushed his, warm and trembling. And what about you, Cole? Don't you deserve a place to rest? For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind carried the faint scent of lilacs from the hills, and the sky burned crimson over the desert. Cole finally said, when a man like me stops riding, the ghosts catch up. Best I keep moving. Elena's eyes glistened. Then at least, promise you'll come back someday. He stood slowly, hat in hand, his shadow stretching long across the dust. Someday, he said softly, if the road don't take me first. Her father appeared from the general store across the street, waving. Mr. Maddox, the folks are talking about Mackin, you sheriff again. Cole smiled faintly. You tell him, the town don't need a gunman for sheriff. It needs someone better. Alina rose, stepping closer. And if they don't find someone better, he looked at her one last time, the sunset reflected in her eyes. Then they'll remember what we fought for. He walked to his horse, a chestnut stallion waiting patiently by the hitching post. As he mounted up, the townsfolk began to gather, men, women, and children, watching silently as the man who'd saved them prepared to ride away. Alina called out, voice trembling. Cole, what do I tell people if they ask who you were? He turned in the saddle, tipping his hat. Tell him I was just a man who couldn't stand by and watch good folks suffer. Then, without another word, he kicked his heels and rode toward the horizon. The wind lifted dust from the street. Swirling in the golden light, Alina watched until he disappeared beyond the ridge, a lone rider, framed by the dying sundot and somewhere in the vast silence of the west. Cole Maddox felt a peace he hadn't known in years. For the first time, the road ahead didn't feel like running. It felt like redemption. The wind howled across the border plains, carrying with it the scent of rain and gun oil. Cole Maddox rode through the storm's edge, his duster-soaked, hat pulled low. The desert stretched endless before him, the horizon swallowed by gray. It had been 3 weeks since he'd left Redemption Ridge behind. 3 weeks since he'd last seen Alina Vargas. Her voice still echoed in his memory, soft as the wind through the mesquite. Promise you'll come back someday. He'd meant it. He always meant it. but promises had a way of fading with the dust. Now, he found himself nearing a place called Crosswind, a border town built on blood and silver. A crooked sheriff ran the place, and the land around it belonged to a cattle baron named Jonas Greer, a man who took what he wanted and burned what he didn't. Cole had heard whispers, families driven off their farms, ranch hands hanged for refusing orders. It was the kind of evil that drew him like a moth to flame. He stopped at the edge of town as thunder rolled across the hills. The sign over the gate was half broken, reading only crosswalk_ND population 237, and falling. Cole smirked. Sounds about right. He dismounted, tied his horse to the post, and walked toward the saloon. Rain began to fall slow, heavy drops that soaked the dirt into mud. The piano inside stopped playing the moment he stepped through the swinging doors. Every eye turned to him. He looked around. Gamblers, drifters, and a few men with badges that didn't shine quite right. The bartender, a nervous man with a crooked mustache, cleared his throat. "You lost, Mr. Just looking for a dry seat," Cole said calmly, removing his hat and setting it on the counter. The bartender hesitated, then poured him a shot. "Ain't seen you around here before. What brings you?" Cole downed the whiskey in one gulp. "Heard some folks needed help." A low chuckle came from a table near the back. "Ain't nobody here needs help, stranger. Not unless you're the praying kind." Cole turned. 3 men sat around the table, all armed, all wearing the same silver spurs. "Greer's men, without a doubt. I ain't much for prayin'," Cole said, "but I'm good with a gun." The biggest of the 3 stood, sneering. "You sound like you're looking for trouble." Cole smiled faintly. "No, trouble usually finds me." The man reached for his revolver. Cole didn't move, not at first. Then came the flash of lightning outside, and in that split second, 2 shots rang out. When the thunder rolled, the man was on the floor, gun smoking, a hole clean through his shoulder. The other 2 froze, staring in disbelief. Cole reholstered his weapon, calm as ever. "You boys tell your boss I'll be visiting soon. Name's Maddox." The bartender swallowed hard. "You just made yourself a mighty powerful enemy." Cole tossed a coin on the counter. "Wouldn't be my first." He turned and walked out into the rain, mounting his horse as the townsfolk peered from behind windows. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolled, not for worship, but for warning. By nightfall, he'd found the Greer Ranch, a sprawling empire of barbed wire and lanterns glowing in the mist. He could see riders patrolling the fences, rifles gleaming. Cole dismounted, crouched behind a ridge, and studied the place. A woman's voice suddenly broke through the night, faint, crying for help. He tensed. Damn it. Crawling closer, he saw her, a young woman tied to a post, soaked by the rain, her face bruised. 2 of Greer's men were laughing nearby, passing a flask. Cole's jaw tightened. He drew his revolver, spinning the cylinder once, that old ritual that steadied his nerves, and crept forward. The thunder masked his steps. The lightning gave him light enough to see. 2 shots, 2 men down. The woman gasped as Cole cut her ropes. "You're safe now," he said quietly. "Who did this to you?" She trembled. "Jonas Greer. Said it'd teach my husband to keep quiet. He's locked up in the barn." Cole helped her to her feet. Not for long. He looked toward the main house, where warm light spilled through the windows. Greer was in there, drinking his stolen peace. Cole's eyes went cold. "Time to pay your debts, Greer." He led the woman to his horse. "Ride to town. Tell the folks to stay indoors." She looked terrified. "What about you?" Cole checked his revolver, then his knife. "I'm riding in." She shook her head. "You'll be killed." He gave her a faint, crooked grin. "Maybe, but not before I end a monster." She hesitated, then whispered, "Who are you?" He tipped his hat. "Just a man who can't walk away." As she rode off into the rain, Cole turned toward the house, lightning flashing behind him, thunder roaring like judgment. He walked into the storm, one man against an empire, carrying not just a gun, but the ghosts of every soul he'd ever failed to save. Rain poured over Crosswind Ranch like the sky itself was weeping for what was about to happen. Lightning split the heavens, casting jagged flashes across the muddy courtyard. The lanterns outside flickered in the wind, shadows dancing on the walls. Cole Maddox stood at the gate, water dripping from his hat, revolver in hand. His duster clung to him, soaked through, but his eyes burned steady through the storm dot from the big house. Voices rose, shouts, hurried footsteps, the clatter of rifles being loaded. Jonas Greer knew he was coming. "Come on out, Greer." Cole's voice cut through the storm like a whip crack. "No more hiding behind men who do your dirty work." A door slammed open. 4 armed riders spilled into the courtyard, rifles aimed. Cole dove behind a wagon just as bullets ripped through the rain. Wood splintered, mud flew. He counted 6 shots, then silence. He popped up, fired twice, dropped one, moved left. Another fell. The storm roared louder, as if the sky wanted to drown out the gunfire. Cole reloaded behind a trough, breath ragged. His side throbbed, that old wound from Redemption Ridge, reminding him he wasn't as fast as he used to be. "Greer," he shouted again. "You're running out of men." A voice answered from the porch, deep, cold, and amused. You think you can walk in here and take me, Maddox? You don't understand the world anymore. Men like me built it. Cole stood slowly, stepping into the open. Men like you ruin it. Jonas Greer stepped into the light, tall, silver, wearing a long black coat and a gold pocket watch glinting at his vest. In his hand, a polished revolver. Cole Maddox, he said, smirking. Heard stories about you. The lawman who ran from his own badge. Cole's eyes were cold. Didn't run. Just couldn't stomach workin' for devils. Greer raised his gun. Then you'll die for your sentiment. Cole didn't flinch. Maybe, but you'll die for your greed. They stood there, two silhouettes facing each other in the rain, thunder rumbling overhead. Time slowed. Every drop of rain felt like it hung in the air. Then two flashes. Two shots. When the thunder rolled, Jonas Greer staggered back. Clutching his chest, his gun fell into the mud. Cole stood motionless, smoke rising from his revolver. Greer's breath came ragged. You think killing me changes anything? There'll be others. Cole stepped closer, eyes hard. Then I'll keep riding till there ain't. Greer fell to his knees, then collapsed face first into the mud. The storm washed over him, erasing his blood like the earth itself wanted to forget his name. For a moment, all was silent. The thunder rolled away. The rain softened. Cole holstered his gun, shoulders heavy. He turned toward the barn, the place the woman had said her husband was locked up. He kicked the door open. Inside, half a dozen townsfolk sat bound and gagged, beaten but alive. When they saw him, they froze, unsure. You're safe now, he said, cutting their ropes. Greer's done. One man, a grizzled ranch hand, stared at him wide-eyed. Who are you? Cole paused. Just someone who had enough of watching good folks suffer. They thanked him, voices trembling with relief. But Cole didn't stay to hear the rest. He mounted his horse as dawn broke through the clouds, pink light spilling across the soaked valley. Behind him, the ranch burned. Flames climbed high, turning Greer's empire into ash. As he rode out of Crosswind, he saw the freedwoman from earlier, standing at the edge of town with a shawl around her shoulders. She raised a hand, her eyes full of gratitude and sorrow. He tipped his hat. No words, none were needed. By midday, the rain was gone, the desert dry again. Cole stopped at a ridge overlooking the valley. From there, he could see the smoke rising, the last remnants of a man's corruption disappearing into the wind. He thought of Elena Vargas then, her voice, her courage, her eyes when she asked if he'd ever come back. Maybe one day. He took out a folded piece of paper from his coat, a letter he'd never sent. It was addressed simply, to Elena Redemption Ridge. He read it once more before tucking it back. Maybe someday she'd read it, maybe not. Either way, she'd know. He kept his promise. He turned his horse toward the horizon. The wind brushed through the mesquite, warm and quiet now. Somewhere behind him, a new day was dawning for the people he'd saved, and somewhere ahead, there would always be another fight, another town, another wrong to right. He smiled faintly. Guess a man like me never truly rides alone. The horse started forward, hooves kicking dust into the sunrise. Cole Maddox, lawman, outlaw, savior, disappeared into the golden light, becoming once more what legends are made of. Weeks later, a rider brought news to Redemption Ridge, a letter sealed in dust and rain stains. Elena opened it by lantern light. It read only 6 words. Still ridin', still keepin' my word. She smiled through her tears, whispering into the night. Then ride safe. Cole Maddox. Wherever you are.